Hello everybody, welcome to the first lab of 340. Today we're going to walk you through the PCB setup for your receiver and transmitter board. To start, we will create a new PCB project by going to File, New, Project. I'll name my project Laser Tag PCB, and then click Create. Then you'll want to right click on your newly created project and then hit Add New to Project and then Schematic. From here we can start adding parts to our schematic, so I'm going to go to Manufacture Part Search and look up LED. After we search for this, you'll see we get a bunch of random components, so I'm going to click on the filter and then filter for through-hole components. You'll then see that we have a couple of LEDs that look similar to what you'd find in the shop. So I'm going to click on one, and then I'm going to go down to its data sheet to check for its dimensions and make sure they match the dimensions of the LED that we have at our shop. So while on the data sheet, you can just scroll down. There should be a page with the dimensions here. As you can see that we have a 5.8 millimeter LED footprint, and then if you measure the LED that we get from the shop, it is approximately 5.8 millimeters. So I'm going to drag this component over. I'm going to rename this component to D1. The next part that we're going to be looking for is the photodiode. So we're going to clear out our LED search, and then we are going to type in BPW34S. This is the part number for our photodiode. We're going to scroll through our listings here, and as you can see that none of these parts have footprints for us to use. So we are then going to go to Chrome and then search our part number, again, which is BPW34S. And then we'll go to the link for DigiKey. From there, we want to make sure that this has a EDA/CAD model. We'll then click on that link. You'll want to scroll down to the SnapMagic one and then select Download Format. We don't need the 3D CAD model in this, we just need the Altium 2D model, so make sure you have Altium selected and then download. Once it is downloaded, you will want to go to that file, click on it. You'll need to extract it first. Once you've extracted it, you'll want to double click on this BPW34S. It should take you back to Altium, and you'll want to install this and add this component to the components panel as a separate library. After you've clicked install, you can then go to your components panel and then scroll down and then click on the 34S, and then you can drag this photodiode into your schematic. We'll then rename this to D2. Now the last part that we need is our connector. So we'll then type the part in for our connector, which will be 61300411121. Hit enter, and you'll get this single part, which is a 4-header pin. So we can then drag this right on into our schematic. And then we will rename this to P1. Now the first thing you'll want to do after this is to Control S and save this, as I'm doing here, and I'm just going to name mine Laser Tag Schematic. After saving our schematic, we are going to create a new PCB file. So we're going to go to our project, add new to project, and then PCB. After that is loaded, we're going to want to save our PCB file right away by hitting Control S. Then I'm going to name my PCB file Laser Tag PCB. After that is done loading, we are then going to press the 1 button on our keyboard to go into the board editing mode. And we'll then go to Edit, and then Origin, and then Set Origin. And we're going to want to set our origin to the bottom left corner of our board. We'll then zoom back out, and then go to View, and we're going to toggle our units. This is going to switch our project units from mils to millimeters. After that, we'll click on Properties and go to Grid Manager, click on properties again, and we're going to set our step size to 1 millimeter. After you've done this, you want to click on design, edit board shape, and from here we can start changing the dimensions of our board. So we'll start with our Y height of our board, and we're going to go down to 32 millimeters. You can see our coordinates ticking in the upper left-hand corner. We'll then set our X coordinates to 74. And once we have done that, we can then press 2 to go back to our layout of our PCB. The next step is to add our mounting holes to our PCB. So we're going to go to our top bar, right click, and then click on pad. As you can see, we'll have a pad appear over our cursor, and we will want to place this pad at exactly X2, Y16, and then we're going to place another one at 72, 16. After we've placed those, you can hit the escape key, and then you're going to want to go click on the first one. I'm going to double click this to pull up its properties. We're going to scroll down, and where we see copper, we're going to want to put 0 because we don't want any copper on this pad. So we're going to put our X and our Y as 0, and then we want to change our hole size to 2.3 millimeters. And then we're going to do the same process again for the second mounting hole. I'm going to double click that, scroll down, set our copper to 0, 0, and then again our hole size to 2.3 millimeters in diameter. And then with this little lock button, we can lock these into place, which means that we cannot move or change these, which you'll want to do to make sure you don't accidentally change your mounting holes. The next step is to place keep out tracks. This is optional. I did this just as a precautionary measure. You want to have 3 by 3 millimeter boxes at each corner of your board just to make sure that it sits in the mount properly. Then we're going to apply the same 3 by 3 millimeter square to each corner. And we're going to do a circular keep out track around our mounting holes as well. So I just click on the center here, and then I just kind of drag that circle out until that circle hits the edge of the PCB, as you can kind of see in that left corner. This is a little funky, so sometimes you just got to try it a few times. Here it's making me draw a circle, and then I right click and then it saves it. You'll want to do the same thing again for the mounting hole on the right side of our board. Drag that out. And then, as you can see, this one didn't make me draw, but it kind of had that same thing. After that, you'll want to go back to your schematic, and then you'll go to Design, and then Update PCB Document. You want to validate your changes to make sure that these changes can be executed. And then after you see we have our green check marks, we'll then hit Execute Changes. It'll bring us back to our PCB file. We'll close out of that. We will then move our LED to the correct position on the board, which will be X25, Y16. If you hit Control L, it will move this component to the bottom side of the PCB, which is where we want it. We can then double click on this and then set our location to 25 millimeters at 16 millimeters. We'll then follow a similar process with our photodiode labeled as D2. We'll then hit Control L to move this component to the bottom side of the PCB, and we will want this at 5816. And I'll make sure to put these numbers in the description below. The last part that we're going to add to our PCB is our connector. So we're going to drag that over, hit Shift Space Bar. This will rotate it, and we want our connector somewhere in this general area on the right side of our PCB. It's not set, but it is recommended that you have it somewhere over here in this general area. We will then want to add a string to our PCB. Here's where you will put in your net ID. So we'll want to double click that, and then on Properties we'll go to Layer, and we will scroll down until we see Top Overlay. This will be like the silk screen that goes on top. You can end up moving this anywhere you want on your board afterwards, but for right now, you'll just want to put your net ID on your board Now that you have your net ID on your board, we're going to do one last check to make sure that all of our components are in the proper place in our PCB. We'll click on our LED first. We'll check to make sure that we're at 2516. We will then check our photodiode to make sure that we're at 5816. A mounting hole, our rightmost mounting hole, if it'll open up, at 7216. And then our first mounting hole at 216. And as you can see, we have these components logged in so we don't accidentally move them when placing other components on our PCB. For pass-off, you'll want a screenshot of your PCB with your net ID and measurements on it. To start, hit Control-M and then go to the bottom left corner and measure to the middle of the first mounting hole to show that that is 16 millimeters tall. Again, from the bottom left corner to the top left corner to show that your board height is 32 millimeters. From the top left corner to the top right corner, you will want to show that your board is 74 millimeters wide. Then from the middle of the rightmost side of the PCB, you will then measure to the first mounting hole to show that that is 2 millimeters from the edge. From that edge again, we will then show that the photodiode is 16 millimeters. And then again from that same edge, we will go to the LED and show that that is 49 millimeters to the center. Now from the center of the mounting hole, we will want to measure to the first mounting hole that we created and show that that is 70 millimeters. And then there you have it. That is how you pass off your PCB.